both have different looks after 5 years. I mean, like,
seriously, dude.
What the hell is happening, CJ?
I'm going for the Jesus look. I think we all need saviors right now.
Catch the movers and shakers, the brightest minds from across the country talking about what makes them tick. This is Rock the Talk on indigomusic.com.
And like I promised, the one and only stand-up comedian Papa CJ in the house right here on indigomusic.com. CJ, absolute pleasure. Always having a chat with you, always watching you on stage. And thank you so much for spending time with us.
Likewise, my brother. I mean, it is always a joy to come back and listen to that sexy voice of yours. Yeah. I mean, it is so good.
Thank you very much. Now, CJ, for those listening in and viewing this, I have seen this special of yours called Naked. It was way back in Chennai, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Now, you are going to be streaming the same on papacjnaked.com, and this is going to be happening sometime during the week. I would like you to tell our viewers and listeners what's Naked all about. How did you come up with this idea? Where can one watch this, and what can one expect? I know it's a lot of questions, but over to you.
So for starters, Niladri, it's a joy for me to hear that you have seen Papa CJ Naked and thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm sure I'm sure your listeners will have a laugh hearing that statement. You know, with regard to the show Naked, it's very different to anything that I've ever done before. I have a very good friend called Reginald D. Hunter. He's one of the best comedians I have worked with, across the globe. He's in the UK. And he explained to me the difference between a comic and a comedian. He says, a comic says funny things, but a comedian has something to say. Now that is, those are two very different things. Nothing wrong with being a comic. You can go joke, perfectly fine. But I felt that the show Naked was the next stage in my evolution as an artist, because I had something to say. The ethos behind Naked, so 80% or 90% of it is funny. You will laugh a hell of a lot. 10% of it is deeply intense, to the point that 50% of the audience, I know I'm throwing a lot of numbers in there, will probably be in tears at some point during the show. Now, what I do in the show Naked is, I'm using the vehicle of my life to talk about the human experience. As human beings, we build walls around ourselves, which hide our deepest hopes and fears and desires. And one brick at a time, I am removing these walls, built on the canvas of humor, and exposing myself with all my vulnerability, all my pain. And it is terrifying yet exhilarating at the same time. But at the end of it, while you are completely naked, you are completely free. Now, the interesting part about this show is that every single person who watches it at some point feels that I'm not just talking about my life, I'm talking about their lives, because they have gone through similar experiences, so they can connect with it very strongly. And there is a strong emotional connect that takes place in this show. And I find that a lot of my audiences get an immense amount of catharsis through this, because they're seeing a guy who's on stage at his most vulnerable. I mean, very rarely would you see another human being, just put it all out there like that. And yet, at the end of it, I am able to find the positive and find hope. And the feedback I've received from many audience members across the globe is that they are able to watch this show, and the thing they take away from it is that, if he can go through these things and get to the other side with a positive attitude, with hope, then why can't we? And the other thing that comes to their mind is, oh my God, I've only seen you laughing and joking and making other people laugh. I couldn't ever imagine that you've been through so much. But every human being has. Each person has their own kind of pain and suffering, which may be different from yours. And you can always compare, saying, oh, his life looks easy. This person has money, or this person has this. But to them, it's still 100% of their suffering. So I found that that's something that has worked well for the audiences in this show, is more than just a laugh. They get some positivity and hope. And that's the reason I have released this show online now, is because I can't think of anything else that people need more in times that are as trying as they are today.
So, CJ, where does one book a seat? Obviously from the comfort of their homes, but it's at www.papacjnaked.com.
Yes. So it's streaming live on Book My Show.
Okay.
But the easiest thing is go to papacjnaked.com. There's a direct link from there, which takes you to the page where you can book the show. There's also a link to my book. So a publisher found this story so powerful that they felt that it should be a book. So it has been turned into a book as well.
Wow.
And they are two different experiences. So in the show, you get to see the emotions of the performer and you feel that performance. Whereas in the book, it's slightly different because the medium of print allows me the luxury of giving you a few more layers. Whereas on stage, I'm obliged to try and get to a punchline quite quickly. In the book, I can tell you different stories that maybe don't fit in the format of the show.
So now this streams out Friday, if I am right, between
Friday,
7
Saturday,
PM.
and Sunday.
Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. For those of you watching this chat, book your seat, obviously, from the comfort of your homes. I've had the privilege of watching, again, Papa CJ naked, but this was in Chennai. And I still remember taking your suitcase and leading you out of the auditorium. So for those of you who haven't watched it, and if you want to watch it again, get to papacjnaked.com. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, between 7 p.m. and midnight. You're going to have a blast. Now, CJ,
I want to interrupt. What a gentleman. You saw me naked and then you escorted me out with my luggage.
I'm just making mistakes after mistakes, man. No, but CJ, for comedians like you who are so used to performing to packed audiences, houses, arenas, how has this pandemic been? How challenging has it been? Because I'm very sure that doing a routine or a session on digital is not the same. So how are you guys coping with it? How are you coping with it?
So it was very new to me, Niladri. I've always been a bit of a purist. All my life, all my career, I've gone around telling people that stand-up comedy is a bit like sex. It's best enjoyed live and not in front of a screen. So when you watch it online, you're surfing comedy porn, so to say.
Right.
But quite to my surprise, I have thoroughly enjoyed being a comedy porn star. But one has learned how to adapt, how to make it work. So what tends to happen at a live show is, as the performer on stage, you tend to interact with the first two rows because the lights are so bright. Those are the only people whose faces you can see. Now, what I've started doing, so if I'm doing a Zoom show, for example, and in the pandemic, I have done Zoom corporate shows for 25 people. I've done online shows for 7,000 families. So that's the scale of it. I get 25 people who become panelists and the others are attendees. So those people who are panelists, they have their audio on, they have their video on. I can see all 25 of their faces. So Firstly, when they're laughing, every single person who's watching the show can hear that laughter. So you feel that same energy. It's got the same timing, as opposed to just silence after a joke. And these guys become like my front two rows. So if I pick on somebody, I spotlight their screen. So the entire 500 people, 1,000 people can see their faces. They can see their reactions. If these guys are sitting with a spouse or a family member, I'm picking on them as a couple, they can witness that entire engagement and they're immediately brought in. So yes, it works. It works wonderfully well, but it's never going to be the same as, as a live gig.
Absolutely.
I mean, with Naked, for example, I remember doing it in a 1,200-seater in Johannesburg in South Africa. And, often I find that I have a different measurement criteria for what makes a successful comedy show. Some people think it is laughter and applause. For me, it is silence. Let me explain this. If you do a college gig, you'll have a rowdy crowd, they'll clap, they'll cheer, they'll bang on their chairs. It's insane. The next day, you do one of these, 5-star hotel, corporate CEO crowds, and they'll just sort of smile at you. And you're on stage thinking, oh my God, this is terrible. I'm having the worst show ever. And you just want to get off stage and run away, right? But you can't. And then you're always scared of the conversation that's going to happen. Either they're going to tell you you're terrible, in which case you feel very bad, or they'll say, oh, it was lovely, we really enjoyed it. Now, you know they're lying, right? And they know they're lying. So it's even more awkward, dig a hole. But I finished one of these shows the day after a college gig, and these guys come up and say, oh, it was amazing, we really enjoyed it. And that's when it occurred to me that different people enjoy things differently. So your kids would enjoy your show and react in a different way to how you might. But the true test of engagement is when you pause how much silence there is. Because then you know they're hanging on to every single word. If you have 1,000 people in a room, 20 people clap, you have applause. 50 people laugh, you have laughter. For silence, you need all 1,000 to participate. So that magic of a live gig, I still remember doing a 1,200-seater in Johannesburg, the Lyric Theatre. And there are parts of Naked where it gets deeply intense. And I still remember I paused at one point and you could hear a pin drop in this room. And then, of course, you give them the punchline and boom, it goes. So yeah, you're not going to have that on screen. Especially with Naked, it's the kind of show where the emotion just envelopes an audience. But I'm hoping you will have a close enough experience at home. From what I've heard from the audiences who saw it this last weekend, they loved it. So I'm hoping it'll be the same.
Now, very briefly, CJ, not all comedians have taken a step like this. You've gone, a few miles, further. You're also a philanthropist. And talking about the Papa CJ Happiness Project, do tell our viewers and listeners, what's that all about?
It's, I wouldn't go so far as calling myself a philanthropist. I think and you see this now as well with COVID, there are so many people who are just helping each other out. I think it's just about doing whatever you can in whatever capacity you can to try and make the world a better place for those around you. So there are times where over the course of 2 weeks, I've done a fundraising tour and raised 45 lakhs for 10 different charities across multiple cities. Pre-COVID days, I had put an offer out saying if anybody's had somebody unwell in their family for a long time, I will come to your home, I will come to your hospital rooms, and I will entertain just you and your families. Of course, it's on the house. Niladri, this has been some of the most satisfying work I've ever done. I remember I did a gig in this lady's house who was 80 plus, had a leg amputated, used to go for dialysis 3 times a week. And when I finished, I said, Auntie, this show is not for free. Every day from tomorrow, I want to receive one laughing photograph of yours. 3 days later, her son sends me a message saying, you have increased her lifespan. Now, before I send you her photograph, she wants to look at it to make sure that she's looking nice.
How sweet, yeah. How sweet.
So the gratification of some of these things is far more satisfying than, any corporate show. I've played the Sydney Opera House, I've been on Broadway, but things like this are far more satisfying and it feels meaningful.
Now, okay, you don't want to be called as a philanthropist, but if my son gifted me a Harley, I would surely call him a philanthropist. Does your dad still have that Harley you gifted him?
Oh, there's a long story to this, Niladri. So when my dad turned 66, for 2 years before that, he used to walk into these super bike showrooms and he would literally be drooling. So when he turned 66, I said, listen, I'm going to get you a bike. Right? Now, either you can choose or I'll just buy whatever I think makes sense. So he chose and we got him a Harley Davidson Fat Boy, which he used to ride. Then when he turned 70, I bought him a slightly fancier bike, something called the Honda Goldwing. And so then this Harley just kept lying there. And I said, well, we told my mom we were going to try and sell it and couldn't find a buyer. But then I started riding with him. Now, I'm not a madly keen biker, but for me, it was a great way to spend time with my father. Because nowadays you get these helmets where you've got a Bluetooth thing. So we can ride together and talk to each other along the way. So we did that. And then in 2019, we were going to do an expedition in Ladakh. So Dad was going to go. You know, the whole Srinagar, Kargil,
Right.
Leh, Nubra Valley, you go over
Yeah.
Khardungla Pass, you know, highest motorable road in the world. Now, it's a very dangerous trip. So I told Dad, listen, I don't want you to go on your own. You know, I'm traveling. Let me come back. Let's go together a week later. So we do this trip, Srinagar, Kargil, Leh. We ride through a snowstorm over the highest motorable road, Khardungla
Wow.
Pass, get to the other side. I have a problem with my brakes. I go down the hill. I land on a bed of rocks and a 300 kilogram motorcycle lands on top of my body. I break my leg in two pieces. It literally snapped. We are now 6 hours away from mobile reception and have to ride back or get back over through a snowstorm over the highest motorable road in the world. So we get to a local hospital. They tape up my leg. Well, I say hospital, more like a small mohalla clinic. They tape up my leg. We get in the back of an Innova. I get to Leh. The following morning, I stay in the hospital overnight. The following morning, I'm airlifted back to Delhi. And the following afternoon, I get a surgery and stick a metal rod in my leg. However, I am a comedian. I now have a new 90-minute show about all of it.
Wow.
And it's called Unbroken.
Fantastic.
This is what I was talking. So like with Naked, you know, you're always channelizing if you don't channelize your pain into art, then it's just pain. So even while I had the accident, I was thinking, this is terrible right now. It's going to be great on stage later. So with this show Unbroken, with the new one that will come out, I have photographs all the way along the way, you know, of,
Wow.
you know, me in the hospital, I mean, of the journey, on the flight, on the stretcher. And there are some really funny bits in it.
Awesome. Looking forward to that as well. CJ, always a pleasure having this chat with you. And for those of you watching us, I have watched Papa CJ naked.
And loved it,
You
baby.
should too.
And loved
No,
it.
but streaming on Papa.com Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 7 p.m. until midnight, right?
Yes.
All right, CJ, absolute pleasure having this chat with you. You please stay safe and regards to everyone at home.
Likewise, my friend. All the best. Take care.
Cheers, buddy.